Among all Balkan beauties, only Albanian women manage to be both elusive and incredibly desirable. It's an explosive mix of Mediterranean genes, mountain pride, and that fiery spirit that drives one mad. We're exploring a phenomenon that neighbors often envy in silence. You land in Tirana, expecting gray concrete blocks and a gloomy post-communist architectural legacy. But you are met with an explosion of colors and energy. The very moment you step off the plane is disorienting. Instead of cold wind and dull terminals, there's soft air, the scent of coffee and spices, and a quick, lively flow of people. From the taxi window, you see building facades in shades from sunny yellow to deep terracotta, sometimes with contrasting inserts and geometric patterns. The car drives through the streets, and you catch yourself subconsciously searching for the familiar grayness and not finding it. The central streets are an open-air runway. There's no sloppiness here, and even those running errands look like they dressed to impress. Young women in dresses and flawless makeup pass cafes where elegant older women sit. A strict, stylish suit, neat hairstyle, confident posture. Even their cup of coffee looks like part of a ritual honed over years. Their fingers, rings, and the way they hold the saucer all reveal a habit of treating everyday details as a stage where nothing extra is permitted. An unspoken dress code is maintained, even when going for bread. A shopping bag might accompany heels, perfectly matched lipstick, and nail polish. Around the corner is a small bakery, and women approach unhurriedly, one in a business dress after work, another in simpler attire, but both have styled hair and clothes that fit with that subtle yet palpable ability to present oneself. The air is filled with laughter and conversations in Albanian, interspersed with Italian and English phrases. You hear topics of family, work, fashion, and the evening shiro. You catch familiar foreign words integrated into the smooth melody of Albanian speech, realizing how easily old and new coexist here. Murals and installations transform facades into art objects everywhere. Some are abstract drawings, some large ornaments, some bold color blocks. Even a building that visually resembles a typical socialist-era high-rise is reimagined. It might feature large colored stripes, or a pattern that visually alters its proportions. The city doesn't just live, it showcases itself and immediately refutes preconceptions. Beauty and style are the norm here. You see teenagers on benches, jeans, sneakers, phones in hand, all seemingly familiar, but in the way they sit, how they adjust their hair or hoodie. There's also an internal demand for appearance. Tirana demonstrates that for locals, outward appearance is not reserved for special occasions, but is part of the daily code. Yet behind the polish lies a foundation of millennia, a history of isolation and survival that taught them to preserve dignity. To understand why even a simple walk down the street becomes a display of style, one must step beyond the asphalt and storefronts and mentally ascend into the mountains, where it all began. To understand the phenomenon of Albanian female beauty, one must delve deep into history. Imagine not noisy boulevards and cafes, but harsh, landslide-prone slopes, where settlements clung to stone and survived thanks to solidarity. Albanians are direct descendants of the Illyrians, ancient Indo-European tribes of the Western Balkan Peninsula. This isn't a dry textbook remark, but a key to understanding why the external picture here is so closely linked to character. Roman historians knew the Illyrians as warlike, freedom-loving mountaineers, whose women were famous for their strong spirit and stately appearance. Chronicles described them as people for whom weapons and household chores were not opposites, but two sides of the same life. Centuries of genetic isolation preserved their type. While empires, Roman, Byzantine, Ottoman, succeeded one another, Albanian clans retreated into inaccessible mountains, upholding traditions and blood purity. They lived in small communities, relying on ancestral memory and strict internal rules. Each generation recounted where people came from, who fought for what, shaping a sense of continuous lineage that can be read today in the proud stance of a modern young woman. This geographical fortress protected them from assimilation and preserved the features of the Denaric race: tall stature, athletic yet graceful physique, expressive cheekbones, thick dark hair, piercing eyes, often brown or green, with a fiery gaze. Such eyes never seem empty. Even in a calm state, they possess a depth, like someone accustomed to looking beyond the everyday horizon. This is beauty honed by a harsh life, where honor and dignity are paramount. In posture and gestures, one reads the imprint of an ancient people. If you observe an Albanian woman walking down the street, you'll notice her back is straight, not just from the habit of wearing heels. It's an internal framework formed over centuries when strength of character determined not only personal well-being, but also the security of the lineage. The same core can be felt in how she looks at her interlocutor. The gaze is direct, but not aggressive, with that very blend of hospitality and readiness to stand up for herself. If genetics are the canvas, then culture is the paint. Albanian style was born at the crossroads of worlds in the Adriatic. Albania is a bridge and a gaze towards the heel of Italy's boot. This image is not only geographical, but symbolic. The country seems to stand between different worlds, simultaneously absorbing influences and remaining true to itself. This is how a hybrid of Italian sophistication and Balkan audacity emerged. An Albanian woman might speak loudly, gesticulate, laugh, but in her choice of dress, silhouette, or eyeliner, that subtle elegance associated with the opposite shores is evident. This was especially apparent during Enver Hoxha's communist isolation, when the country was almost cut off from the world. Paradoxically, a cult of Italian style emerged then. The world seemed to shrink to a few television channels, and these became a window into another reality. Women caught Rai Uno and Canale 5 on homemade antennas. Scenes from Milan and Rome became lessons in manners and fashion. Dresses, coats, bags, hairstyles, and gaits flashed across the screen, and every detail became an object of careful study. Without magazines and boutiques, seamstresses and housewives copied designs from the screen, sewing from cheap fabrics but with precise darts, length, and cut. It was an alchemy that transformed the accessible into the dignified. Imagine a kitchen table covered with paper. On it, a pencil, a piece of chalk, a scrap of fabric. A woman peers at the screen, trying to capture the shoulder line, the skirt's silhouette, memorizing it, and then transferring it to paper so that a few days later, a new dress would appear in the house. Thus, fashion became not a privilege of the chosen, but a result of collective ingenuity. Hence the rule, sloppiness is bad manners. It was never written in any official document, but was passed down in the family as naturally as recipes. An Albanian woman will not go out without her headscarf in order, her hair neat, and at least light makeup. Even if the day promises to be filled with household chores, before stepping out, she will glance in the mirror, adjust her hair, smooth her collar, and refresh her lips slightly. This is not vanity, but self-respect and respect for others, inherited from mothers and grandmothers. Even in years of hardship, appearance was a form of internal resistance. When there wasn't enough of anything, a pressed single skirt or a neatly darned blouse said, "We are still holding on. We are not giving up." Today, with open borders, young women adopt Milanese trends but filter them through local identity. They might watch fashion shows, scroll through feeds, but ultimately choose what highlights their natural features rather than turning them into a copy of someone else. This is how the phenomenon of natural aesthetics is born. High cheekbones, thick dark eyebrows, and a clear oval face are more often a gift of nature than a surgeon's. Makeup enhances rather than reconstructs. Girls learned from their elders not only recipes, but also self-care techniques, how to emphasize eyes, what shades suit them, where to stop so as not to overload the face. This is Albanian chic. Fashion is integrated into a strong natural aesthetic, and a Balkan spark remains in their eyes. It is this spark that makes even the most outwardly reserved woman recognizable. At the right moment, this spark flares brighter, in laughter, in argument, in dance. For a mature audience, not only appearance, but also the combination of modern independence with respect for family traditions is important. When you look at an Albanian woman, it's easy to see in her both the person capable of earning, making decisions, and a keeper of the home, for whom family is not a formality, but the center of the universe. A woman here is the queen of the hearth, the architect of domestic well-being, and the guardian of traditions. It's no accident that many decisions germinate precisely in the kitchen or living room, where several generations gather around the table. Respect for the man is not submission, but partnership. She is the neck, gently guiding the head. This comparison often sounds semi-joking, but behind it lies a deep truth. A man might be first in the public sphere, but in the domestic circle, his direction is often set by a woman's voice, calm, reasoned, sometimes firm, but always stemming from care for the family. Authority in matters of raising children, budget, and relationships is decisive, based on respect and the ability to make balanced decisions. One can imagine a typical scene. One of the younger generation suggests a risky step, a move, an investment, a career change. The man tends to be impulsive, but the final yes or no is formed after a conversation with his wife. She weighs things, recalls the family's past experiences, considers the interests of the older and younger generations, and her opinion becomes the balancer that keeps the home ship from capsizing. The cornerstone is the veneration of elders. This is not just a beautiful phrase, but a living practice, manifested in dozens of small details. In Albania, there are almost no nursing homes. It's considered a disgrace. The thought of a mother or father spending old age among strangers is perceived as a denial of one's own roots. Caring for parents is the children's duty, often taken on by the daughter-in-law. Respect for the mother-in-law, like a mother, is taught from childhood. Little girls are taught to give up their seats to elders, offer water, and inquire about their well-being. For them, it is natural that a grandmother or grandfather is not a burden, but a source of wisdom, history, and advice. A symbol of respect is kissing an elder's hand upon meeting. In cities, the gesture is often replaced by a nod of the head and a hand to the heart, but in rural areas, it remains alive. This moment is brief but rich. The elder slightly raises their hand. The younger person bows. Their gaze meets. In this gaze is an acknowledgement of authority and gratitude for the years lived. To a foreigner, this is touching and reminiscent of times when age signified wisdom and authority. For a visitor from a society where the cult of youth has displaced respect for old age, such a scene can be almost a revelation. Here, a person does not lose significance with years, but, on the contrary, acquires a special status. The pinnacle of charm is Albanian hospitality. It's something people hear about, but don't quite believe until they witness it. A guest in the house is a blessing from God. They don't ask how long you'll stay in advance. As long as you're under their roof, you're protected. The driver who took you home might suddenly be invited for coffee. A neighbor on the street might be called for a minute, which turns into a long feast. An Albanian woman knows how to set a table from nothing. A feast appears from flour, oil, cheese, and greens, and the hostess pretends it's nothing. In reality, this reflects a developed skill for quickly combining ingredients, always having a small stock, and never serving anything just haphazardly. She will ask about your well-being, offer comfortable shoes, inquire about your family, and create a feeling of being one of their own, which is why many leave feeling they found another family. For her, a guest is not an occasion to boast, but an opportunity to show her best self, generosity, attention, delicacy. If you decline a second helping, you'll likely hear a persistent but benevolent, just a little more, because refusal is perceived as a sign that you might not be comfortable enough. And as long as you are under her roof, the hostess will ensure that none of your small needs go unnoticed. If the family is a private stage, then Shiro is the main national runway, explaining why Albanian women are always in shape. It's not just an evening stroll, but an entire social organism that, at a certain time, begins to live by its own rules. At a specific hour, usually after work and before dinner, central streets are closed to cars and transformed into a pedestrian zone. The city seems to take a deep breath, shed the day's traffic noise, and put on another mask. A mask of unhurried but bustling human movement. The promenade begins. Everyone walks, from babies in strollers to the elderly. But the main actresses are women. They set the rhythm for columns and solo walkers, couples and groups. Young women walk in twos or threes, laughing, stopping to fix their hair or take a photo. Middle-aged women stroll leisurely, exchanging news, discussing children, work, and plans. Elderly ladies walk a bit slower, but their posture still carries that same internal core. Giro is not just a walk, but an unspoken review and socialization, almost like a live social network. New hairstyles, outfits, news of engagements and successes are published here. Any family change, a new job, a relative's visit, an important purchase, sooner or later becomes part of the general information field during the evening circle. The question, "Çfarë do të thonë njerëzit?" What will people say? Is at play here, not about judgment, but about maintaining standards. It echoes in your head when you choose shoes, decide how to behave, how to greet someone. People go to Giro in their best. Girls with makeup, men in clean shirts. Children have their hair smoothed, shirts adjusted, and are reminded to behave appropriately. In coastal Vlora, a grandmother in an elegant dress and impeccable gray hairstyle walks arm in arm with her granddaughter in high heels and fashionable jeans, a connection of generations cemented by a ritual of dignity. This scene shows how tradition does not conflict with modernity but intertwines with it. One carries the memory of old customs, the other the breath of new times, but both move to the same rhythm. For elders, Giro retains a hint of showcase. Grandmothers and aunts observe and comment, and this tradition disciplines and creates a sense of community. It's not a harsh judgment, but rather a gentle quality control. Here, they try not so much to condemn as to remind what is customary, so that the overall standard does not drop. For someone accustomed to anonymous streets, such a ritual might initially seem like pressure, but then it becomes clear what it gives in return: a sense of belonging to a living community. The fiery temperament and strength have a name: Bernicia. This word sounds firm, like stone, and behind it lies a special phenomenon. The phenomenon of sworn virgins proves that the spirit of an Albanian woman is capable of overcoming conventions. If there were no male heirs left in a family, one of the daughters would take a lifelong vow of celibacy, adopt male clothing, duties, and rights, becoming the head of the lineage. There was no lightness in the decision that changed her personal fate. It was a choice for the continuation of the name, the protection of the home, land, and elders. This was a sacrifice and a responsibility that transformed a woman into a protector of the hearth. She took on what, under normal circumstances, would be distributed among several men: negotiations, resolving disputes, protecting the family's interests. Society took her seriously in this role, understanding the price she paid. Hence the modern character. An Albanian woman is not a recluse, but a ready-to-fight guardian. Her devotion is great, but her demands for loyalty are strict. She can be gentle and affectionate, but where the honor of the family or a personal word is concerned, there are almost no concessions. Here, Besa operates, a word of honor, given once and for all. Betrayal of trust destroys the foundation of relationships. Besa is not a beautiful term for ceremonial speeches, but a working tool used in both big and small matters. Promise it. Do it. Say yes. Do not back down. History knows cases where the violation of Besa in love and family led to long-standing blood feuds. Today, the code is softened by time, but transformed into a matter of principle. Her love is a fortress that must be earned. No casual person will be allowed into this fortress, but if the doors open, they will not be closed to you without a very serious reason. For those who value reliability, such a model is familiar and understandable. There is less game and more linearity, perhaps sometimes sharp, but honest. There's another reason why Albanian women seem the hottest: their manner of communication. Even a brief dialogue in a shop or at a bus stop here is rarely indifferent. The gaze is held directly. A smile appears instantly. The voice sounds with a rich, well-placed timbre that conveys both softness and confidence. They are not afraid to laugh loudly, show emotions with their hands, lean a little closer to their interlocutor than is customary in more northern countries. And it is this bodily openness that creates a sense of lively, dense presence. At the same time, behind the outward ease lie very clear internal boundaries, instilled by that very code where Besa and the concept of honor hold a key place. Flirtation here is not an invitation to cross the line, but a game within understandable rules. An Albanian woman will easily support a joke, look at you in a way that takes your breath away, but in the next second, she can calmly dismiss an overly insistent gesture without losing her dignity for a second. It is in this combination of fiery temperament and a firm internal stop that the special feeling arises when a man nearby feels both a spark and boundaries simultaneously. On evening walks, in cafes, on the coast, you constantly notice this style of communication. They hug friends, link arms with their mother, easily adjust a man's collar or tie, not shying away from tactility, and at the same time constantly demonstrate that they control the situation. Their hotness is not only in external effectiveness, but in how they are present in the moment, entirely, without half-measures, with the full range of emotions, but always with a preserved sense of self-dignity. This is most vividly expressed in motherhood. An Albanian mother is a mother wolf. The expression sounds strong, but behind it is not aggression, but a readiness to protect to the last. Boundless overprotection, care, feeding, protection, and guidance, even for adult children. Calls several times a day. A full refrigerator upon a visit. knowledge of life details. This is a form of love. For her, there is no concept of a child's other people's problems. His work, relationships, health, everything passes through her heart. She might ask about trifles that others would consider insignificant. If he ate, if he slept well, if his feet got wet, how conversations went at work. This total awareness sometimes seems excessive, but in the Albanian context, it is perceived as a natural way of being close. This resilience is symbolized by the legend of Rozafa Castle in Shkodra. For the walls to stop crumbling, one of the builder's brides had to be walled up alive. She agreed for the common good, asking only for an opening for her breast to feed her infant. In this image is a woman literally built into stone, yet continuing to fulfill her maternal function even when everything else is inaccessible to her. The metaphor is clear. The Albanian woman is the foundation, nourishing future generations, even through stone. For many, this story sounds like a fairy tale, but its emotional truth is evident. For the sake of children, people here are willing to set aside their desires, plans, time, and sometimes an entire life. And there is no sense of sacrifice as something tragic in this. Rather, it is perceived as the highest form of meaning. Strength is supported by diet and lifestyle. Albania follows a Mediterranean diet without fanaticism. People here may not know complex terms, but do what nutritionists today describe as an ideal eating pattern. The cornerstone is olive oil, used generously, in salads, stews, soups, sometimes a spoonful on an empty stomach, for health. A bottle or pitcher of oil is almost always on the kitchen shelf, and the hand reaches for it automatically. This liquid diamond, rich in antioxidants and vitamin E, is considered an elixir for skin and blood vessels. Older women might simply say, "Good oil is health," but behind these words lies years of experience. Those who ate food prepared with it less often complain of heaviness, recover faster after exertion. The second secret is the cult of freshness. The market, bazaar, is more important than the supermarket. In the morning, fish from the Ionian or Adriatic Sea. In the afternoon, cheese from a neighboring village. In the evening, vegetables from the field. A trip to the bazaar is both choosing products, a walk, meeting people, and a way to stay updated on news. Seasonal vegetables, greens, and fruits lie on the stalls, and the hostess chooses not by bright packaging, but by smell and appearance. All of this is organic by default. Statistics note that Albania demonstrates one of the lowest levels of cardiovascular disease in the Balkans, and scientists link this to traditional nutrition. For people seeking the secret to longevity, such a fact sounds convincing. It turns out it's not about a miracle pill, but about what's on the table every day. There's little room for ultra-processed foods here, and the rhythm of city and village life itself encourages moderation. Long sittings with heavy, multi-layered dishes simply don't fit into an active life. But diet is only part of the formula. The second is natural activity built into the landscape. The mountainous terrain makes every day a workout. A house might stand on a slope, so the path to it is a series of ascents and descents, not a flat, rectangular grid of streets. Walks through the alleys of Girokastra and Berat, rural chores, constant movement replace fitness centers. For adults and the elderly, this is especially important. Muscles and joints continue to work without extreme loads, and the heart gets regular, gentle training. Climbing stairs without an elevator, walking to the next block for errands, harvesting crops on a plot. All these are small steps that make a big contribution to health. Clean mountain air mixed with sea breeze completes the picture. This is not a healthy lifestyle fad, but life in rhythm with nature, providing energy and a blooming appearance. Here a walk is not considered a separate health activity. It is simply integrated into the day, morning, noon, evening, especially during Jiro. Therefore, when you look at an older woman with a clear gaze and a lively gait, you understand that her condition is not the result of a short self-improvement campaign, but of her entire life. This fusion of health, strength of spirit, and family wisdom has brought Albanian women onto the world stage. They remain the same guardians of the hearth, but are no longer limited by its walls. The highest symbol is Mother Teresa, Anjeze Gonje Bojaciu. Born in Skopje to an Albanian family, she became the embodiment of mercy and sacrifice, a bridge between traditional spirituality and global service. Image combines simplicity with incredible inner strength. She grew up with the respect for family, elders, and duty typical of Albanian culture, and then directed this internal resource far beyond her homeland. For the older generation, her name is not an abstract symbol, but proof that values learned around the kitchen table and in family conversations can become the basis for great service to the world. Neither appearance, age, nor origin prevented her from becoming a moral compass for millions, and in this, many recognize their own. Today, the baton is taken up by Dua Lipa, Bibi Rexha, Rita Ora, children of the Albanian diaspora. They were born and raised in a different reality, but their behavior and public gestures often show familiar traits: respect for family, pride in their roots, a readiness to openly speak about their origin. Their success rests on an inner core inherited from their mothers and grandmothers. Rita Ora, as a global pop star, proudly performed the traditional Albanian dance shota in a national costume on stage. There is no hint of shyness in this performance. On the contrary, before a huge audience, she demonstrates movements that were once part of family celebrations and local festivities. This is the balance of a modern Albanian woman. She can fill stadiums and still cook birek, maintaining a connection to her roots. The diaspora has become a living network, transmitting culture and the strength of female character. In different countries, in different cities, wherever Albanian families may find themselves, one can often see the same scenario. During the day, work, public activities, integration into the local environment. In the evening, home, where familiar speech is heard, beloved birek is prepared, and news of the homeland and the fates of relatives are discussed. This creates a special space in which tradition does not stagnate, but evolves, following the people. Looking at this blend of traditions and modernity, you understand. The secret to the attractiveness of Albanian women is not a cream or a supplement, but a state of mind and a love for life. They know how to savor the moment, be it a family celebration, a business meeting, or a simple evening stroll. Youth is in the fire of Burnesha, in the serenity of the queen of the hearth, in the joy of a mother. This fire does not always make them soft and convenient, but it is precisely what attracts. Next to them, you feel that life is not only comfort, but also depth, choice, loyalty. They do not run from age, but embrace it. Wrinkles for them are traces of smiles and experiences. A face etched with lines here is not a reason to hide, but a reason to be proud of what has been lived. Their attractiveness is energy and an inner light that only warms with the years. For those who are themselves on the path of maturity, such an example is especially valuable. It shows that with each decade, one cannot lose oneself, but on the contrary, become more whole. Albania is not a museum. Everything lives in every Albanian home and in every smile to a guest. Here, traditions are not under glass, but served at the table, heard in songs, seen in gestures and glances. If this article has piqued your interest, you have already received an invisible invitation. Albania awaits not tourists, but future friends. Stepping across the threshold, you become one of their own. You will be met with warmth, fed as if it were a matter of honor, and they will be saddened if you refuse a second helping of homemade yogurt or a third cup of Turkish coffee. Your cup will rarely be empty. While you are here, your comfort will be looked after almost as if you were a family member. You will be taken on an evening giro, explained where best to walk, how to greet people to feel part of the common flow. You will see people of different ages walking side by side, exchanging glances and greetings, and gradually understand that this is not a show for guests, but a natural rhythm. And as a farewell, they will give you a small jar of homemade fig jam or knitted socks, so your feet don't get cold. In these simple gifts, there is the same message. We want you to be warm and sweet, even when you are far away. And then it will become clear. The hottest in the Balkans is not just about appearance, but the warmth of the heart, the flame of tradition, and the heat of hospitality. Welcome to Albania. You will always be truly welcome here, not formally, but genuinely, as only those for whom the word besa and the concept of honor still mean a great deal can welcome you.